Welcome back, comic book fans and cosmic travelers. I'm Hari.
And I'm Kimi. Grab your power rings and charge your batteries because today we are diving headfirst into an absolute masterpiece of modern comic events. We are talking about the monumental 2007 DC Comics crossover, Sinestro Corps War.
That's right, Kimi. This storyline was an absolute game-changer for the Green Lantern mythos. Originally published between June and December 2007, this massive 11-part saga ran primarily through the Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps titles.
And we absolutely cannot talk about this epic without giving major props to the architects behind it. Written by the legendary Geoff Johns and Dave Gibbons with absolutely stellar artwork by Ivan Reis, Patrick Gleason, and Ethan Van Sciver.
The structure of the event was pretty expansive too. Alongside the main 11 parts, there were 4 supplemental Tales of the Sinestro Corps one-shot specials, plus a tie-in issue for Blue Beetle. It was inescapable in the best way possible.
So let's set the stage. The story picks up after the events of the 2005 miniseries Green Lantern Rebirth, which essentially acts as the first act of a massive Geoff Johns trilogy. If Rebirth was A New Hope, then Johns himself compared Sinestro Corps War to The Empire Strikes Back.
A very apt comparison considering the tone. Following his defeat in Rebirth, the former Green Lantern turned supervillain Sinestro retreats to the antimatter universe, specifically the planet Quard. There, he starts amassing a terrifying army of his own.
But he doesn't just hand out rings to anyone. Sinestro recruits based on a very specific, chilling criterion, the ability to instill great fear. He arms his followers with yellow power rings, creating a horrifying mirror image of the Green Lantern Corps.
It's basically World War II, but spread across the entire universe. That's exactly how the creators described it. And Sinestro doesn't just gather foot soldiers, he brings in some heavy hitters. We're talking Parallax, the resurrected Anti-Monitor, Cyborg Superman, and Superman Prime.
Which is a truly terrifying roster. When the Sinestro Corps launches an all-out assault on Oa, the homeworld of the Green Lanterns, the casualties are catastrophic. They free Cyborg Superman and Superman Prime from imprisonment, and in a massive blow to morale, they capture Kyle Rayner.
And here is where things get truly dark. Kyle is dragged to Quard, where Sinestro forcibly separates him from the symbiotic entity Ion. This leaves Kyle completely vulnerable, allowing the fear entity Parallax to possess him outright. It's a brutal emotional gut punch. Naturally, Hal Jordan, John Stewart, and Guy Gardner mount a rescue mission, but it goes horribly wrong. Hal ends up trapped and forced to face Sinestro and his terrifying inner circle face to face.
Meanwhile, the surviving members of the Green Lantern Corps are forced completely underground, splitting into 2 desperate factions. One group gets ambushed trying to save Hal, but the other actually manages to rescue Ion.
Thankfully, they manage to reunite, escape the antimatter universe, and limp back to the positive matter universe. But there is absolutely no time to rest. Hal, John, and Guy race back to Earth to warn the Justice League that the Anti-Monitor has returned.
And as the Sinestro Corps starts ambushing Green Lanterns across the cosmos, the Guardians of the Universe make a drastic, desperate move. They literally rewrite their sacred text, the Book of Oa.
This is a massive lore moment. They remove a section about a dark prophecy known as the Blackest Night, much to the dismay of 2 Guardians, Ganthet and Sade. Worse still, they add 10 new laws. The very first one, authorizing the use of lethal force against the Sinestro Corps.
For a peacekeeping force that historically relied on non-lethal apprehension, this is a complete paradigm shift. Ganthet and Sade object so strongly to this change that they're outright expelled from Oa.
While the Green Lanterns are bracing for an attack on Oa, Sinestro pulls a massive bait-and-switch. He teleports his entire Corps, their central power battery, and a new war world directly to Earth. Earth was the main target all along.
Which leads to an absolutely explosive battle across the globe. Hal manages to free Kyle from Parallax, and Gambit and Sade trap the fear entity inside their power batteries. Then, the exiled Guardians reveal the chilling truth to John and Guy about that Blackest Night prophecy.
The prophecy foretells the rise of 5 additional Corps, each based on a different color and emotion in the emotional spectrum. After they are all established, a war of light will break out, destroying all the Corps and bringing about the blackest night.
Back in the fight, the Guardians arrive on Earth and appoint Sodom Yacht as the new Ion. By the way, Jeff Johns noted that this upgrade officially made Sodom Yacht the strongest Green Lantern in the universe.
The climax in New York City is legendary. The sheer overwhelming numbers of Earth's heroes eventually turn the tide against the Sinestro Corps, but victory comes at a very steep price. A very steep price indeed. A Guardian literally sacrifices himself to blast Superman Prime into an alternate universe. Another Guardian, Scar, is heavily wounded by the Anti-Monitor. Hal and Kyle eventually subdue and arrest Sinestro in Coast City, but the aftermath reveals that 440 Green Lanterns were killed in the conflict.
The rebirth of Coast City, famously dubbed the City Without Fear, serves as this beautiful, symbolic representation of Hal Jordan's journey toward acceptance after his own resurrection. It's perfect poetic justice that Sinestro's defeat happens right there.
Speaking of character journeys, I think we should talk about some behind-the-scenes origins. Did you know the entire foundation of Sinestro Corps War was actually rooted in an Alan Moore story?
Oh, absolutely. The 1986 short story Tigers, drawn by Kevin O'Neill from Tales of the Green Lantern Corps Annual Number 2, Jeff Johns and Dave Gibbons pulled so many concepts from that single story. The prophecy of the Blackest Night, Sodom Yacht, Ranks, the Sentient City, and the Children of the White Lobe.
They even brought back Liesl Khan, a character who was mentioned exactly once, 25 years earlier, in Moore's story, Mogo Doesn't Socialize. That is some serious hardcore dedication to continuity.
It really is. The creative process was quite fluid at first. Work began back in September 2006. Initially, it was just going to be called Sinestro Corps, but the creators realized the sheer scale of the conflict demanded the word war.
At one point, they didn't even know the format. It fluctuated from a few issues with bookends to one gigantic issue before settling on the one-shot special, followed by alternating issues between the Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps titles.
And you mentioned those 4 tales of the Sinestro Corps one-shots earlier, Hari. They focused on Parallax, Cyborg Superman, Superman Prime, and Ion. DC actually added them to the schedule late in the game because the initial issues of the crossover were so wildly successful.
Right, and it gave a huge break to writer Sterling Gates. He literally met Jeff Johns at a comic convention, and Johns ended up bringing him on to write the backup story, Fear is a Baby's Cry, for the Superman Prime one-shot, along with co-writing the Secret Files issue.
I also love the fun, hidden Easter eggs. The artist Yvonne Race had an absolute blast with those large 2-page spreads. If you look closely, you can spot sci-fi legends like E.T., Alf, and even a predator hidden in the background.
Oh, that's one of my favorite trivia bits. And here's another hilarious one. In Green Lantern number 25, when Sinestro reportedly blasts a Green Lantern with energy, the sound effect written on the page is EEPA. Ha! Yes, which is allegedly a direct reference to the Simpsons movie, where comic book guy explicitly says EEPA is the sound a Green Lantern makes when thrown into a vat of acid by Sinestro. That level of meta-humor is just brilliant.
And remember Superman Prime? During this event, his name was officially changed from Superboy Prime. Jeff Johns claimed it was to show the character coming of age, but the truth is, there was an ongoing legal dispute at the time over the rights to the Superboy name, so Superman Prime it was.
A very clever pivot. There was another big change during development. The original plan reportedly involved John Stewart and Guy Gardner being possessed simultaneously in addition to Kyle, forcing Hal to fight all of them.
But Jeff Johns allegedly realized that having Parallax possess only Kyle was far more emotionally effective, given Kyle's tragic history. They reportedly had to drop the original concept and redraw that entire segment.
Thank goodness they did, because the emotional weight is what makes this event a masterpiece. The expansion of the emotional spectrum into 7 colors, red for rage, orange for avarice, yellow for fear, green for willpower, blue for hope, indigo for compassion, and violet for love fundamentally changed the DC universe.
Exactly. We see Gentat and Sade forging a blue power ring of hope, while the remains of the Anti-Monitor land on a dark planet and transform into a black power battery representing death, the perfect chilling setup for Blackest Night in 2009.
The reception was universally stellar. It turned Green Lantern into one of DC's most profitable titles. The first issue alone sold out in a single day and went through 4 printings. By August 2007, it had sold over 89,000 copies, largely driven by a massive surge in reorders.
Even the Blue Beetle tie-in issue saw a 75% spike in sales compared to the previous month. Critics absolutely adored it. IGN called it a smash hit, and Comic Book Resources boldly declared it was what Marvel's World War Hulk should have been. They praised its pacing and momentum, naming Jeff Johns one of the best writers of 2007.
Ethan Van Sciver even earned an Eisner Award nomination for his incredible art in the opening special. An IGN reviewer actually used the event as the gold standard for future crossovers like Final Crisis, explicitly correcting the false claim that DC executive editor Dan Didio had called it the best thing DC put out that year. Didio loved it so much he even pushed for a direct-to-video animated movie adaptation. Sadly, that never materialized. But interestingly, during the early development of the canceled 2012 Green Lantern live-action sequel, the main plot was going to be based heavily on this storyline.
What a colossal missed opportunity for the silver screen. Still, fans can always revisit the comic. There was actually a lot of internal debate at DC on how to collect it. They eventually released 2 durable hardcover volumes first, followed by softcovers, setting a modern trend for how comic events are packaged today.
It truly is a high watermark for comic book events, expansive, deeply emotional, packed with lore, and visually stunning from cover to cover.
I couldn't agree more, Hari. It remains a definitive, unforgettable chapter in superhero history.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the cosmos for today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Stay safe, keep reading, and we'll see you next time for more fantastic tales.
This episode is based on the Wikipedia article Sinestro Corps War, which is available under the Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike license. This podcast was crafted using artificial intelligence.